everybody, and thanks for joining me on another episode of Straight Jacket White Rabbit. My name's Adam, and as usual, I'll be your host. You guys, today's kind of a special episode. I'm really excited about this one just because of the topic. It is the 30th anniversary during this week of this incident occurring, and it's kind of a big deal. This is known as the Roswell of South America, you guys. For those of you who don't know, I'm talking about the Varginha incident in Brazil. Now, Varginha, Brazil, fairly decent sized city, well populated. It's not a small city. I think it's in their top 6 biggest cities in Brazil. In 1996, you guys, January 12th, to be exact. There were a few on the 11th and I think the 6th of January as well, but there started to be some people who reported seeing UFOs. Various types of UFOs, but they started witnessing them flying over the town. Now, on the 13th of January, you guys, a man by the name of Carlos de Souza is driving to go visit his friends on a day off. He's just going to go hang out with some buddies and enjoy the day. As he makes the hour-long drive to his friends, he sees an object coming towards him from off in the distance. This thing is up in the air, and as he gets closer, he sees a cylindrical craft that is flying at irregular speeds and flying in an irregular way in different movements it was making. He said it looked like it was having trouble. It looked like some kind of aircraft in distress. As he got even closer to it, he says that this cigar-shaped craft appeared to actually have damage to the back end of it, or what he believed to be the back end of it. This craft starts going lower and lower and crashes in the distance. Carlos de Souza immediately decides he needs to see what this is. So he goes down the road in his car, and as he gets to where this thing crashed, pulls his car over, crosses the road, and to his astonishment, there is, well, one half of this craft still intact, crashed into the ground in this open field area. There was a house nearby. It's no longer there now. But for roughly 150 yards or so, he also sees this huge debris field. Sorry, couldn't talk. Debris field that he sees, which he's imagining is what's left of the back end of this cigar craft that he saw flying overhead that just crashed here. He walks up to a piece of this debris, and this is one of the reasons, you guys, why they say it's so similar to Roswell. Carlos de Souza kneels down, and he picks up a piece of debris, I don't know, a little over a foot. And as he's sitting there holding this, he's realizing that this is as light, if not lighter, than aluminum. It's really light metal. And he bends it and kind of twists it and crunches it, and it goes right back to the same shape he picked up. Just like in the Roswell incidents, this is an incident that is involving memory, what appears to be memory metal. He's amazed by this stuff. He's sitting there just looking at it and looking at the craft. He doesn't see any aliens or any bodies, just the craft, well, the front half of the craft and what we presume is the back half of the craft spread out through the debris field. And as he's sitting here just in amazement of what he's looking at, Carlos de Souza hears a sound off in the distance. And as it catches his attention and he looks up, he notices what appears to be some kind of a military convoy of trucks flying down the road towards where he's at. Now, as these trucks pull up, armed guards, military armed officers, well, I don't know if they were officers, but military armed personnel get out of these cars, and they're screaming at Carlos de Souza, "Get away from there! Get out of there right now! Go!" He's freaked out. He doesn't know what to do. He stands up. He drops the piece of debris that he was holding. And the military officers are still approaching him, getting closer and closer. And one of them stops just shy of Carlos. He aims his rifle up like a foot and a half, 2 feet from Carlos's face, and screams at him again to get in his car and to leave. Carlos de Souza immediately puts his hands up, says, okay, I'm leaving, and he gets in his car and he drives off as quickly as he can. Now, he's in shock of what he's just seen. And he later recounts to a few people his story of what he's seen. But this is kind of where his involvement in this ends. Now, multiple independent sources and witnesses have verified that there were military trucks on this road doing something for hours and hours that day. Now, this was on the 13th, keep in mind, of 1996, January, in Varginha, Brazil. Fast forward, you guys. People see the military trucks come. They presumably do a good cleanup. They leave with full trucks full of stuff. Fast forward to January 20th in Varginha, Brazil. And in the morning, the local fire department, you guys, was getting calls of some kind of odd animal or creature wandering around near this road on the edge of town. Well, there in Varginha, Brazil, the fire department is who takes care of these things, either poisonous snakes or other animals that come into town. So they didn't think too much of it other than the weird reports of it being an odd-looking animal. They get here and they see this creature with reddish eyes. And I say reddish because they all say they weren't quite red, but they weren't. They were closer to red than a purple, but they had almost like a lighter red and kind of purple to it. They had this reddish eyes, these ridges on the top of its head. Well, the firemen do what they normally do, and they throw a net over this thing, and they captured it with very little effort. Once they get it up to where they can access it, they remove it from the net using something akin to like a dog catcher's pole. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's a long metal pole. At the one end of it is basically a slip knot noose, and the other end of it is another piece of cord that you can use to tighten it so that you can keep an animal far away from you while leading it somewhere. They use this and to apparently walk this creature around. And stories kind of fade off from there of they took it to a hospital, and that part we know. But we don't really know which hospital it ends up at or whether or not the military came to take this one or the other one. And the reason it's different is there are so many different witnesses that we're not sure which creature they saw at the hospital, if it was the one that the fire department caught or if it was another one. Because as you're about to find out, there's another one. So this is the morning of January 20th that the fire department captures this creature, you guys. They take it into a local hospital trying to figure out what it is. We'll leave it there. In the afternoon of that same day, you guys, 3 girls, Lilian Silva, Valkyria Silva, and Katia, K-A-T-I-A, Katia Xavier. These 3 girls walking home came upon a creature crouched down by a wall in an empty lot. Now, they were walking through this empty lot to get home, and they came within like 8 feet, you guys, of this creature. It was huddled all down by this wall, and they didn't even notice it as they were walking by it until it moved its head, and they locked eyes with this reddish-eyed creature. One of the girls was so shocked that she just screamed instantly and ran down further a few yards to get away from it. Seeing her friends were still there looking at it, she did kind of come back up towards her friends, urging them to leave. But the girls said that they got a feeling from this creature that it wasn't going to hurt them, but it was worried about them hurting it. It was worried about something injuring it. It was legitimately scared, or what appeared to be scared. Now, I don't know if this was some kind of telepathic communication, or if it was just what the girl sensed by its body language. That's debatable, and I would have to actually see further interviews with the girls to know for sure. But they basically said that this thing looked terrified. It was a small creature, about 3 feet tall, maybe a little more. It had reddish eyes, 3 protruding small ridges on its head. The eyes were about 3 times the size of normal human eyes, and teardrop type shaped. Hands and feet didn't have the right amount of fingers and toes. And they said that its skin appeared wet. They thought from sweat. They said it was sweating profusely. It was so wet, like it looked drenched. It was sweating so much. I don't think it was sweat, but we'll get to that. The firefighters from the morning of this animal's capture, this being's capture, in the same morning, one of the things that they reported was that this creature looked greasy or wet. So that's 2 different people who report seeing this thing, and they give the same type of description of the look of its skin. Its skin looks wet or greasy or some kind of moisture or something on its skin. Now, the girls end up running off to go tell their mom. The mom comes back with them to the empty lot, and the creature is gone. However, she does observe, you guys, a footprint in this loose red sand that she said was, the typical 3 like that, which kind of unnerved her. And she took the kids, she went back to the house. Now, keep in mind, these kids did not think alien when they saw this thing. This is a richly Catholic community. These girls saw a red-eyed, odd-looking creature. And to their own admission, the first thing they all thought was demon. But then they realized, like I had said, that this thing looked scared. It looked shaken. And they sensed that it was worried of them harming it. Or of something that was chasing it, possibly the military. Now, the girls get taken back to the house by the mom. The creature was no longer there in that lot. The military comes in within an hour or so. And they lock down, you guys. I mean, they completely lock down a few blocks around this incident. I think it was 2 or 3 blocks around this incident. One of the witnesses that they had on the documentary Moment of Contact, which is by James Fox, 2022, I think, released. Great documentary if you haven't seen it, on this very incident. Now, one of the people that he got to talk about this, one of the witnesses that spoke to him and were telling him about these police blockades, he was just trying to get home, you guys. They wouldn't even let people enter to go to their own homes. There was no one allowed in, no one allowed out. They were searching this area for something. Now, the government admits that the military trucks and military personnel were there, but they do not admit to there being any blockades or it being anything out of the ordinary. They say that it's perfectly normal for those trucks to be in that part of town, which I honestly don't believe a word of, because the citizens disagree. They said it was abnormal for them to be there. Now, they locked this area down. Later on that night, 2 military police corporals found the second creature, you guys. While on patrol in the city, a man named Marco Charisse and Eric Lopes found the second creature close to where it had last been seen by the three girls. They stop the car and they pull over, they stop the car, and Marco Charisse is the first one who jumps out of the car. He runs up and he snatches up this creature from behind. They both say that it doesn't appear that this creature put up much of any kind of a fight whatsoever, or it was too weak to do so, possibly injured or sick, we don't know. But they grabbed it up, he gets in the car, the person he was with, Eric, was actually his commanding officer. They drive this thing to a hospital, then they drive it to a separate hospital because they didn't want to deal with it. And when they're talking about this after the incident and they get it to the hospital, they're talking about how Marco is saying that he can still feel this thing's like greasy, sticky sliminess all over him where he touched this thing. Once again, we have a description of something on this thing's skin that looks wet. But here's the twist. Marco actually got it all over him. He was actually physically holding on to this thing. This is why it's important. Because shortly after this, Marco Charisse dies of an unknown bout of infections that he could not fight off. The doctors say they've never seen anything like it. It was like his immune system completely vanished. It wouldn't help. Antibiotics did not help. And he passed away very, very soon after this incident. So now we have a dead police corporal, military police corporal, Marco Charisse, and his partner, the only one left alive who's actually seen this thing as a up close witness, who we know his name and everything, is Eric Lopez, and he vanishes. And I don't mean that like parenthetically or he just took a long vacation. This man disappeared, you guys, for 26 years. People and documentary makers and book writers, everyone has tried to locate this man and failed. He did not want to be found. And as to the person I just plugged a minute ago, James Fox, the director of Moment of Contact, you guys, in this movie, he finds the man. He actually finds Eric Lopes. And when you watch this, if you guys go and watch this documentary, the man they contact is scared. He looks paranoid and scared. And he actually threatens James Fox and his camera crew with a gun. He tells them he'll shoot them if they don't leave. Multiple times he tells them. This man is so scared that he is heavily armed in a house, way kind of off the grid, hiding. He doesn't want other people to know. This is what I'm getting at, you guys. None of these people, not the firefighters, not the girls or their mother, not the corporal before he died, not the corporal that didn't die, Eric Lopes, none of these people made any money off of this. Not Carlos de Souza, the first man that actually saw the crash site and held part of the ship. None of these people made money off of this. They didn't write books. They didn't do anything that make themselves famous or money or get more attention off of this or anything. There was no upside for this. If you talk to 90% of the people involved in this, in fact, they all say the same thing, which was this was a horrible experience and they wish it never happened to them. Most of them do not look at this in a positive light. Now, after the disappearance of Lopes and the death of Marco, there were numerous reports you guys. The body was moved to a place. I'm going to try to not screw this up. It's called Campinas, Brazil, Campinas, to a military base there. The bodies and supposedly the craft, or what was left of it, were shipped to this base. Now, the importance of this is we have eyewitnesses, numerous eyewitnesses, who have come forward and said that on this day, at night, a U.S. Air Force plane arrived, spent hours at the actual military base airfield, and then was loaded up with several crates and left. During this time frame, there were several witnesses who were confronted by men in black suits, white shirts, black tie, black hat, and black glasses, driving a black car. Unmarked, no license plates, no identification given to any of these people. And numerous people were intimidated or threatened. Carlos de Souza being one of them. Carlos de Souza, the man from the original crash site that went to the original crash site at the time it happened, was outside of a local restaurant when these men approached him, you guys. And a lot of people say it wasn't a threat. I'm going to tell you right now it was a threat. These men walked up to Carlos out of nowhere and said, "Are you Carlos de Souza? Whose wife is so-and-so, whose daughter is so-and-so." They knew his wife's name, his daughter's name. They knew their school and their work, where they all worked, where their kids went to school, their home address. They list off all this personal information of his. And he's like, yeah, who are you? How do you know all that about me? And they just look at him and they tell him, stop talking about it. Nothing happened. And he's like, what? Well, no, stop talking. Nothing happened. They get in their car and they leave just as quickly. There were a lot of incidences within a 24-hour period, at least 4 that I know of, where these men were basically just intimidating witnesses. So this sounds a lot like the tales of the Men in Black that we've gotten on numerous occasions with UFO sightings. Then you have the people who were claiming that the U.S. Air Force landed, even though they had no clearance or government. For the people, one of the people we talked to at the military base actually said point blank they did not have clearance or any approval to be at their base on their airfield. They just kind of showed up. Were they invited to handle this because they needed someone who was better equipped technologically? Did they call us in to help them handle this? Or is this something that the U.S. just showed up, kind of took over and, applied muscle to get their way in a situation? We don't know. But we know that the U.S. Air Force had a plane on the ground at this base. And that was in Campinas, Brazil. So after this, we also had a witness come out, and they got this on the Moment of Contact film by James Fox. And I want to tell you why I keep plugging this film in James Fox, you guys. There's also another one before I get into that. UFO Crash in Brazil, is a book by Roger Lear. If you haven't read it yet, it's a great book on this. Anyways, back to Moment of Contact, the film, and James Fox. You guys, James Fox, to me, is one of the best ufologists and film directors of UFO films that there's ever been in my lifetime. This man is the pound the pavement, knock on every door, track down the leads, find the witnesses. He is the most determined to get to the truth, whatever the truth may be, that I have seen in this field for quite a while. I mean, back since the days of when George Knapp and them were younger. Like I said, another Jeremy Corbell. This man, James Fox, is a pit bull when it comes to getting the story and finding the witnesses and putting the facts together and presenting a coherent story and argument of things that have happened. He gets you the things that you really need to know about the story, and he shows you all the angles. This is why we believe this is true. This is the people that we talk to, and he's just a really good, in my opinion, he's a really good documentary filmmaker and ufologist. That being said, like I said, the book by Roger Lear, UFO Crash in Brazil, also an awesome book. The reason I love this story so much, you guys, is there's so many parts to it. And there is one more part that I didn't get to yet, and I'm going to right now. And that is the family. There is a family in Varginha, Brazil, that it's a, I'll say, well-respected family in the community. One of the members of the family is actually a doctor. And on this film, the doctors and his family come out and they say that they observed a craft over the city, a UFO, an actual flying saucer disc-shaped UFO, flying right above their house area in the city. That was really loud. Anyways, in a grid pattern, searching for something. It appeared to be searching for a craft, an alien, a person, we don't know, but it was searching for something. They stood outside their home watching this for over 15 minutes, you guys, with it being close enough down at a low enough altitude where they got a lot of very good detail in this ship, from the inside part of the ship that was rotating. Like, they got a lot of detail into this craft. And like I said, it was searching for something. They said that it was doing an obvious grid-shaped type of pattern. Was it looking for the survivors of the UFO wreck that was recovered? And they just don't know that we already recovered their survivors. What were they looking for? Some people think that they were looking for other survivors, not just those two beings survived this incident. There is evidence to suggest this, but I don't want to get too deep in on it, only because I'm not that well knowledgeable on it myself. I know some details, which I will share with you here momentarily, but I just want to be clear, I don't know everything about the rest of this story. I have not had access to some of the witnesses that other people have had, and I've only heard bits and pieces of what they have. But in Varginha, Brazil, in their zoo, apparently within the same, roughly, I think, within 3 or 4 days after this all supposedly ended, they had 4 or 5 animals die in a mysterious kind of way, kind of the same way that Marco died, the corporal, where some kind of infection took over them and nothing got them better. No kind of medical help was able to prevent them from succumbing to whatever this was. At the same time, there were also reported sightings of another creature with red eyes, the ridges on the head, the whole 9 yards, close to this zoo. Now, it sounds possible to me. I mean, if the only one who touched this creature or had prolonged contact with this creature was Marco, and he got sick from some kind of mysterious infections that wouldn't respond to antibiotics or his immune system, and these animals died in a very similar way, and there were reports of a creature being seen near there, maybe this creature was checking out the wildlife there. Heck, we don't know. Maybe it fed on them. Did you check it for any kind of a bite mark or anything like that? We don't know how these things feed. It could be something akin to a mosquito where you don't really feel the bite. by all accounts, this creature has no mouth really, just a slit. I mean, yes, it's probably its mouth because of the way it looks, but we don't know that that's how these things eat. Was it just getting an up close look at animals because it was curious and it was on the run and it just had nothing better to do, quite frankly, but kind of enjoy its time in the zoo hiding? We don't know. But these animals did die. That is a fact. The zoo will even acknowledge that these animals died. Now, they don't acknowledge that they died from any alien contact or anything like that. But it's convincing to think about. It's an interesting point that these things all seem to have died in the similar way to the corporal. And there were sightings of supposedly another one of these creatures because the other two had already been caught. So unless we lost one of the ones we caught, then there were more creatures out there possibly. Was this ship that this doctor and his family saw for 15 minutes searching a grid pattern over the city, was this ship looking for other survivors? Now, I love this topic. For those of you who've heard this story before, I hope I gave you something new. If not, then you haven't heard the story before. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, go look up the documentary Moment of Contact, and the book UFO Crash in Brazil. You guys, Roger Lear wrote that. Good stuff on this incident. If you want to read more about it, they get really in depth, and the book is very well written, and the documentary was excellently produced and directed. So for tonight, I think I'm going to call it, you guys. I want to thank all of my members, as I always do. You guys, becoming members helps me financially. Any donations that you guys send me help me out financially, and I appreciate you guys helping me keep my stuff running, helping me get things paid for, like my editing software. You guys are amazing. If you guys can, on your way out, hit that like button. If you're not a member and you liked what you saw, hit the subscribe button. We'd love to have you back. For right now, this is going to be all for my show today. Once again, you've been watching me, Adam, on Straight Jacket White Rabbit. I hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your night. Love each other, be safe, and remember, keep your eyes open. You never know what's above you. Take it easy. Good night.